better. Agenda item 1, in that case, the minutes of last meeting on 15th September. In front of you. Any comments, observations, views? No? I'd be happy with that. In that case. Apologies for absence. Sarah, please.
Okay, we've received apologies for absence from Councillor Dobson, Councillor Place and Councillor Smith. Substitutions for this meeting only, Councillor Creamer for Councillor Place and Councillor Perdue for Councillor Smith.
Great. Thank you. Those of you who don't already notice, I called Jim our super sub. He's always around. No, seriously, a warm welcome to all of you who are standing in for this meeting. Nice. Thank you for doing so. Item 3, declarations of interest. I'll read both of them together. Do any members or officers present have any disclosable pecuniary interest to declare? And do any members or officers present have any private interest, pecuniary or non-pecuniary, to declare? I'm taking that as a no. That is agenda item 4. I've moved I formally introduced the report. We'll come on to that in a minute, but I will go straight on to recommendations on page 9, 1 and 2, and move them, please.
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you, Jonathan. Much appreciated. Jill, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members, and Iris, Martin and their support colleagues. The first report this afternoon is an update on Disability Confident Leader accreditation, and I'm delighted that Martin and Iris can join us as the co-chairs of the Disabled Employee Support Network, who have given their support and their input into the work that's been undertaken to reach the point where we have formally been accredited as a Disability Confident Leader. And this is a really significant place for the organisation to be, but the importance is not just the receiving of the accreditation, but the work that we will undertake to make live the commitments that are given in the submission to date. One of the areas I wanted to talk to you about today, which isn't detailed in the report, but just to give an illustrative example of how we're trying to make live our genuine commitment to this agenda, is the work that's been undertaken to date towards our audit, supported by the British Deaf Association, into our renewal of commitment to the British Sign Language Charter. And colleagues from across the organisation have met with representatives of the British Deaf Association for them to understand what work is currently underway and what future work will be required to make, again, live our commitment. And that work is currently being led by Taraj Singh, our Equalities Officer. And the chair of this committee, Councillor Wheeler, has agreed to take part in some of the community events. So at the moment, the work undertaken is internal facing, but moving forward, it will be more external facing. And there will be the opportunity for Councillor Wheeler to meet with community groups and the representative of the British Deaf Association to understand the experiences, how people access our services, and whether there's any gaps. And that will be, again, related back to service departments so they can understand the current provision and if there's further work required. So that's a key piece of work. There are a number of other work streams underway. Our accreditation was given just a few days after the last committee, which is unfortunate. But it runs from the 27th of September, and a copy of the accreditation certificate is attached to Appendix A. I'd also like to mention specifically a colleague not at this meeting, Lindsay Woolmore, who's been instrumental in drawing together the evidence that we submitted as part of our accreditation. I think Lindsay's done an amazing job in drawing together a huge amount of information and translating it into a meaningful content for our submission. I think it's really important that members continue to give their support. because whilst this is a recognition of the work, but also to the ongoing work that we need to undertake to ensure that all our employees, whether they have a disability, whether they have family members with disabilities, feel that this county council is a place that genuinely cares, wants to be inclusive and wants to provide fairness and access to opportunities, be they in service delivery or employment. I'll pause there just to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jill. Let me formally again welcome Iris and Martin and those who are with them today. Very, very warm welcome. And of course, not forgetting Ruby, very important. In a minute, Jim, is that right?
Yeah, thank you. It's obviously welcome, so I don't know exactly what's been doing being a sub on this committee. But the external challenge and validation, I mean, this is certificate till 2024. Will there be other external challenges during this period, or would the next external challenge be in there? Because I think external challenge is extremely useful now and then, because we always think we do better than we do.
Thank you, Councillor Creamer. I'd like to think sometimes we don't celebrate when we do well as well. The element of external challenge, so the accreditation is given by the Department of Work and Pensions. What we've done is worked with Leonard Cheshire and subsequently the Business Disability Forum to validate the submission that we will make. So we've had, in effect, 3 elements of external challenge to date. That's not to say we'll be in any way complacent, and that's why we're choosing to work with external bodies on specific pieces of work so that we have that ongoing challenge. Right. And I can assure you that Martin and Iris, as representatives of the Disabled Employee Support Network, continue to challenge us to ensure that we make better provision for colleagues who need assistance to maintain their employment, and that's why we have an ongoing dialogue with them. And another example of that would be that Matt Neal and Paul Martin, so Service Director for Property Services and the Head of ICT, have not that long ago attended network meetings to understand the issues that arise for colleagues through the development of hybrid working models, because whilst they may work for the majority, they pose particular challenges depending on the nature of the assistive technology some colleagues use. So it's an ongoing piece of work, and we would want to be in a position where we are very confident at the point where we come to our next accreditation that we've continued to develop a body of evidence throughout the intervening period, so that the completion of the submission will be a relatively easy task next time.
Yeah, thank you. Again, congratulations to all.
Thank you, Jim. I'm very pleased you said that. And I also call what you said earlier on, the amount of support and help you've had, not just you, sorry, we as council have had from our members of staff towards getting this accreditation. I know there's a couple of other hands. I'll come on to that in a minute. Just if I can say, we're not interested in pieces of paper here. It's nice to have a piece of paper. It's nice to be recognised for what we do. But it's what goes behind the piece of paper. It's very, very important. And Jill and Marge and I have spoken in a long conversation, and so has Jonathan, about what positive we can do when we have these accreditations. Jill mentioned the British Deaf Association. Now, one of the things being considered, for example, was to open and close the meeting with sign language, but that could have been seen as a gimmick, and that's we're not interested in gimmicks here. So we are speaking to the British Deaf Association and working a program with them. And this was mentioned earlier on, because otherwise it could devalue a huge amount of good work that's gone into this, and we don't want that work to be devalued, because what we achieved and continue to achieve is phenomenal, and we must build on that. Jono, you're next.
Chairman, thank you very much. As a disabled man, I've got a false leg that I lost in Afghanistan. I'm also dyslexic. It's great to see this report and I welcome it. I'm just wondering what this council does to support future candidates here that want to be councillors in the future, how we're supporting our elected members, but how we're also supporting people that maybe want to come here but don't feel they're able to do so. Because at the end of the day, we want a full spectrum of the people that we represent to be able to come here in the future. hopefully Conservatives, but you never know. But no,
Now behave, you two.
But yes, we want to see a wide spectrum of our residents, and I'm wondering what this council does to support them.
Okay, now either Jill or March would like to answer that.
So I think in terms of who stands as a candidate, I think that's to the parties to nominate, isn't it? So that would be for if you're Conservative or Labour, because you've raised this issue as well.
Other parties can also apply.
Or other parties. Then that would be for your party. So it'd be working through your party to try and, but obviously if we can help in any way to encourage a broad spectrum of applicants, because I think you're absolutely right. We want our employees to be representative of our communities, but we'd also want our members to be representative. So I think you'd have to work through your party to do that.
I think the second part of that question, wasn't it, John? Jono?
Yeah, I think that's a slight cop-out, if I'm honest, and I'm sorry to come across that strong, but I think this council can do more, and I think by showing what we're doing as a workforce, but also to welcome people to come here, to have a look round and show them what we're doing as a council, so people, because you might have an independent that wants to come forward, or you might have somebody that's not politically orientated that wants that support to feel how they can be helped by this council, and I think we need to do more, but thank you very much.
Fair cop, and I guess that being a disability confident leader will help with that, won't it, from that aspect? Because that would be about showing that leadership role in the community. Yeah.
May I, John, we're happy to work with you because you know more about what we can do than possibly we do. So to use your knowledge, your experience will be valuable for us, John.
I appreciate it, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Errol.
Yes, thanks, Ray. And I support John as well for what he's saying about that. As an ex-forces person myself, I'm with you with that. What I also want to do is to sort of welcome this report and congratulate our colleagues in HR and also my previous colleagues in workforce and organizational team, which have been, I think this piece of work has been fantastic. And also to sort of congratulate the Disabled Employee Support Network for achieving this accreditation. I think it's a fantastic piece of work, and I think I echo what Marge said about us being a champion. Taking it, showing people what we're doing is good. So that's a good start. And I note what the chairman said about not having it on paper only, but for action only. So hopefully that we will start to show action in how we move forward. So in that case, I just want to know what role then will the Disabled Employee Network play on an ongoing basis to further develop this, and how have we sort of publicize this achievement, and do we intend to promote this, on our wider organizational network? And if we do that, how?
Jill, would you please?
Perhaps if I start answering Councillor Henry and then invite Iris or Martin to say how they see the future of the network continuing to support the work in this area. So yes, it's intended that we'll promote the achievement, because I think it's really important that people recognise and understand. Too often we do a piece of work and then move on to the next piece of work without recognising the achievement. So there will be some comms, internal and possibly external, around it. People will be invited to use the standard mark on job adverts so that we're signalling to job applicants that we are a disability competent leader. In terms of the involvement of the network, we meet fairly regularly to discuss issues of the day, but if I invite Iris or Martin to say how they envisage it moving forward, because I think it's part of an ongoing dialogue. It's not a one conversation done and move on.
I think receiving this disability confident leader will hopefully signal to employees that disabled employees are important to the county council, and that we're hoping that we'll be able to promote the group more through that, and maybe get new members as a result of that, because I think sometimes people don't feel that maybe that it is always inclusive, but this is a way of showing that we are. So Martin and I will be working on sort of using this award to promote disabled employees within the department. And I think a good thing to do that, a way to do that as well, might be to use some examples of disabled employees that are willing to do so, to say how the department has supported them in their role, what roles they're undertaking. So I want us to be able to show as well that we've got disabled employees throughout the department, not just in sort of lower paid jobs, but in management as well. So yeah, I think what we need to do is show that you know, again, if you have got a disability, this authority is keen to support you with your career development as well, and that there is opportunities there. And overall, you know, as a department, you know, we do try very hard to, you know, make the reasonable adjustments that people need to ensure they're, you know, able to do their jobs to the best of their abilities. And that's really important that we do continue to sort of make reasonable adjustments. You know, I think this is, you know, it's a tremendous award for us to achieve, and it just shows the commitment of the authority. And I think that we're actually looking to you know, personally, when I've been telling people about it, they've never heard of this award before. So we do need to communicate it out there as well, that the people need to be aware that actually what it is and what it means.
I think you're absolutely correct. And again, once more, thank you very much for all your help and support. And what you've just said is absolutely important. And Jill touched on this a bit earlier on. We're not very good at telling the world out there how good we are, and we need to get better at that. And we will something, especially something as important as this. We must get it right. So thank you. Really appreciate that, Iris. Thank you. Martin?
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate what Iris has said. I think going forward, we will continue to challenge. Marge and Jill both know that Iris and I will challenge where we see it appropriate. We do often have members coming to us, and we deal with a number of issues outside taking them to Marge and Jill, because, you know, there's sometimes you get staff members who come to you and you think, well, actually, I don't think you're necessarily being reasonable. So we do take that into account. But we will continue to challenge. We will continue to test. We regularly test applications that are public facing and internal facing, you know, like the app, the website. We test that for accessibility. And to make sure it looks good, both from a visual perspective and from a non-visual perspective. And we will continue to do that as the years go on.
Thank you. And once also to you, Marge, thank you again for all you've done. It's greatly appreciated. Errol?
Just to be clear, I know I actually talk a lot about the department. I presume we're talking as a corporate thing, not just the departmental stuff. Okay, thank you.
Are we, anything else more? No? In that case, once again, a huge thank you for coming along this afternoon. And as I said, sorry guys, but Ruby is the star once more. Thank you once more. Because I think you're leaving us at this point. Very sensible, may I say. Of course you can,
as you do.
Of course you can.
You were talking a little while ago about, you know, encouraging people with disabilities to become sort of counsellors. And, you know, is there a way that maybe employees or whatever could come to committees and things to see how things operate, or to talk to counsellors themselves if people want to know more about it? Because that would be another way of jointly doing it, you know, with yourselves, as well as looking at, you know, what support we can get from, you know, Marge and Jill and people like that. I think as counsellors, you're the best people to tell and demonstrate what it is to be a county councillor.
Marge next to me is nodding ferociously while you were talking.
I don't see a nod, Marge.
So you
microphone on, so I can't say it.
You can't say. The answer is yes, of course it is, and it's something we will talk to you about, as will Jill, definitely. As to what has to become a councillor, are you sure about that bit? Oh, Ruby's welcome anytime. Bye. Thank you again for coming along.
Oh, yeah, I'll get it.
Oh, thanks, Adrian. So you should really have gone through the formal process saying everyone's happy with that item, agenda item 4. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, Sarah, my mistake. She tells me off all the time, you see, so I would stop just in time from being told off then.
That was unanimous, was it? Yeah.
But it was unanimous, yeah. Okay. Agenda item 5. Now, before I open this up, a very, very warm welcome to these wonderful folk sitting behind the team there. These are present. Can I call you a bunch of graduates? Yeah, go on, I can, can't I? You let me do that, won't you, today? Just the once. No, seriously, a very warm welcome to you all. I've heard lots of good stories, and I've also been talking to Adrian briefly earlier on, who's saying some very nice things about you. So there you are, you see. Well, it doesn't get any much better than that. Well, hopefully it will get better than that. We, as a council, are making deliberate attempts, perhaps something we may not have done too well in previous years, but certainly with the last cohort of graduates, we're working very closely with them. We've done a video presentation with them, with me. Poor souls are still recovered from that one. And we'll be asking you to do something similar because we want to hear from you. We want to keep you involved. We want to know what you think about working for us. And it's a genuine ask of you. We'll come at that a bit more in the report. I said to you earlier on, if you wouldn't mind staying behind for a few minutes afterwards, the man in the corner there is going to take a photograph of you. Be warned, be warned. But if you don't mind. But we'll come on to a bit more detail when Jill will more to the point. So I formally introduce the report, move the recommendations on page 19. Jonathan?
I would second, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Jill, it's over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This is another positive report, and hopefully members will agree that over several years now, we have reported to committee about the development of the in-house graduate trainee scheme. Previously, as the report says, we were a part of the National Graduate Development Programme, but we felt that there were limitations to that programme and that we could do something better in-house. And what the report tries to show is the development over a period of time about how the various cohorts of graduate trainees have come in, undertaken their 2-year traineeships and moved on into employment. And one of the key things that we've discussed on an ongoing basis is the importance of providing opportunities for sustainable employment at the end of the graduate traineeships. There will be an opportunity for you to ask our graduate cohort, the most recent graduate cohort, questions later in the presentation, but just wanted to go through some of the important information and also to commend Adrian as a person who guides and leads and supports the graduate trainees, is instrumental in running the recruitment exercises, which over the last 2 years, having had to swap from face-to-face to virtual, has been no mean feat, I have to say. So thank you, Adrian, for all your work in delivering that for us. The last report came to committee in November 2020 and reported on the progress to date. I think the overwhelming success that I would say is of all the cohorts so far, we've retained all bar one of the services of the graduate trainees, either directly employed within the County Council or in partner organisations. And the colleague who left didn't leave because they dropped out or because they're unsuccessful. They chose to relocate back to London and took up an opportunity in London. So that's a really, really positive thing, because what we've identified is our graduate trainees may be the future leaders of the County Council. But no matter whether people choose to stay and build their careers or whether they were unsuccessful at interview or the assessment centre, what we want people to do is to experience any interaction with the graduate recruitment as the most positive experience they can have. Because who's to say the person who wasn't selected isn't going to be a future chief executive of this organisation. So it's really important that people have the most positive experience and feel that they're treated fairly in the process. I'm delighted to say that the calibre of graduates has remained consistently high, which I think is a testament to the quality of the assessment process. And this year, because of the quality overall in the 15 candidates selected for interview, we were in a position to expand from the previous 6 to 8. And that's really important in continuing to develop the cohort. We've met that from existing budgets, so it's been a challenge, but you know, it's not costing additional money at the moment. And I think it's important for members to hear from these colleagues, and at future meetings we can bring members of the other cohorts to understand where different groups are in their development of their knowledge and experience with the County Council. So I'm just going to pause there and invite questions from members to the graduates. I think you're all prepared, aren't you, that you may get asked a question, because I think I can talk about the experience of the graduate and the quality of the graduate, but I think it's important for you to have the opportunity to talk to them directly and to ask them your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Jim, please.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. I can't think of one for the students, I'm afraid. It's just that it's welcome that you've actually increased the cohorts from 6 to 8, but at previous times you've increased the cohorts during their periods. Will this 8 be the number, or is there possibilities of taking up others in the future? Before he said it hasn't cost us anything yet, so will this 8 be strictly, or in the future there's possibility of 1 or 2 extra, as there has been in the past?
I think that very much depends on the quality, because we have been blessed with quality candidates, and therefore we've gone to bat to get the funding from existing budgets but if next year we felt there was only 6 quality candidates because of the challenges of what we put the cohort through, I'd say it's 6. If it was 10, who's to say I wouldn't be coming back to this committee to say, can you find me the money for 10? So it's very much a flexible thing. I think what might be helpful to set in context is at next committee in December, what I'll be bringing is seeking approval of a youth employment strategy, of which the graduate trainee scheme will be part of that. And that will be almost like a whole council approach to youth employment.
Thank you. Before I come into questions, hopefully you have a question there lined up for our graduates. This is they are our future. Simple. They are our future. And we want to keep these graduates and the next cohort and the one after that. So yes, Jim, if we do see the quality coming forth, and Marge and Jill and I and Jonathan, we've spoken about this before, we will do whatever we can to hammer budgets to get in the high caliber people. Because, as I said, they are possibly our next chief executives sitting in this room. Tell Anthony that, will you, later? Oh, no, not you. One of them. So, yeah. So, thanks, Jim. It's a very, very good question. Errol.
Yes, thanks very much. I always welcome graduates, because in my previous time here, I was quite instrumental in developing the traineeship scheme here, which we for social workers, especially within children's, and we did win a big national award under my leadership then. So I'm quite proud to say now about that. So I welcome this report really, and it's fantastic to see that Nottinghamshire County Council is benefiting from the talent that we have out there. So it's really good. My only observation is I think it's on point 15, subparagraph 15 on the report, where there is very limited, I think you knew I was going to say that, didn't you, about the limited amount of BME candidates that have been attracted to here. So I don't see any of that, but no doubt there's something ongoing to encourage them to come along. But it's always been like that. I don't know why it's like that. Whether or not it's a reputation that Notts have, they don't seem to want to come here, I don't know. So it's something, I know that there's some work going on to see what we can do to attract more people from a different diverse community. So outside of the apprenticeships then, what might we do to, as an authority, to offer equality of opportunities to those young people in those less affluent communities who may not have the opportunity to have, or not fortunate enough to have gone to university or study at a higher education level? So what are we doing there? And for the graduates as well, I want to know from them, what is their experiences so far here? Do they feel that they're gaining something from us? Do they feel that we are an employer of choice so far for them? And do they feel that they will probably stay here? We want them to stay, don't we? And we want them to be the next chief exec, don't we? Anthony, watch yourself. There's people coming for you. But we want that. So we want to know just give us an idea of what it is for you here and how you feel it's working for you, and whether or not you think you're getting something here that will benefit you to move forward for a career here in Nottinghamshire.
Purely at random, I'm going to hit a name. Emily.
So far, I feel like throughout the council structure, we've had people come talk to us about what we want to get from the programme, what kind of skills we want to develop. If we want to drop in on a meeting, that is, we're very welcome to. We'll be scheduled in to these meetings. I've been able to meet so many different people from my department so far, and they're all willing to help me progress in what I want to do. They're willing to, if I was interested in a specific project, they're willing to help me get involved with that. So I feel very valued as a member of the council, even though I've just started, and I've got a lot to learn. I feel very valued and that I have a lot of potential to grow in this position.
Oh, thanks ever so much, Emily. Thank you. Do you have another volunteer? This is rather than just picking a name at random like did to poor Emily, who wasn't expecting any of this. Come on, who's going to be brave enough to go next? Yeah, please.
Hi, so I chose this grad scheme because of the fact we get to go in 4 different placements across 2 years, which is something that is quite unique and quite individual, especially versus ones in the private sector where you just do marketing, for example. So that was my main reason for coming here, and that's something I'm really excited about doing. That's why it was my employer of choice.
Yeah. Okay. There are 2 more hands went up, so I'll go for quickly for 2 more for you. And I think in that order they were Abby and Alex.
I just wanted to say that in the 4 weeks since we've been on this programme, the thing that's really gone kind of beyond my expectations has been the support from senior members of staff and the opportunities to engage with all levels of the council. And we've been given lots of different forms of support, which I feel like has been really key to kind of settling in. But in terms of opportunities and engagement with senior levels of staff, it's gone far beyond my expectation. So that's been really good as well.
Abby, can you just tell people in the room who you're working with?
No comment required.
What else beyond that? Are the graduates just within your sector, Marge, or are they quite?
No.
Okay.
Adults, children, not everything.
But let give Alex an opportunity as well, and then please, then we'll come back to you.
So I'm placed in public health. So I think one of the things I was excited about, I'm a little bit older, and there was sort of a few opportunities was to do sort of more meaningful.
It doesn't
work.
show, Alex. It doesn't show. You're all right, mate.
Yeah, I think I wanted to do meaningful work, and I wanted to have like responsibility immediately. I think some grad schemes you feel like you'd be sort of waiting a few years before you got something like that. So I've really enjoyed that straight away. I felt valued and felt like people have an expectation that you'll be able to do a job rather than just kind of shadow forever, really. So it's been good for that.
Thanks, Alex. I've got 3 more councillors. Do you want to come at this point?
I can do, yes, because there's a couple of points that Councillor Henry raised that. So you asked about how we encourage people from different backgrounds who may not have the opportunity to go on to further education. Part of the strategy that will come next time will talk about the joining up of a number of different strands of work that take place across the council. So we've got colleagues in economic development, we've got colleagues in children supporting care leavers, we've got colleagues in adult social care and health, supporting all age disability in employment and health. And if you were an internal customer or even an external employer, you may have multiple people contacting you, asking you what opportunities have you got, either for work experience or for apprenticeships or for employment opportunities more generally. What we're seeking to do is to join that up so that there's a single approach, accepting there'll be specialisms and different support needs in that, but so that the council are working together, so we're not pulling against each other in all trying to secure that opportunity. You asked as well about with graduates with their placements just within one area. No, that's not the case. There's a bidding process where managers put forward, that sounds awful, the bidding process for graduates, I apologise, but they make a bid with a business case about what their placement can offer to individual graduates for a 6-month period. And we're not entirely rigid, are we, Adrian? If a project's likely to last a little bit longer or a little bit less, that wouldn't preclude that taking place. And tomorrow we'll be launching a specific page on the intranet that will provide information for our graduate trainees, but also managers who may not yet have come forward with bids for placements, to explain what the process is and for them to understand. And it will also be a place for a regular blog from the graduate cohort, so that there's information about what the lived experience is of being a graduate trainee within Nottinghamshire County Council. And we will use that information in our outward-facing recruitment process, which, subject to approval of today's committee, we hope to launch next April. The issue about attracting from different communities you recognise as an ongoing challenge. As a graduate trainee programme, we engage with the local universities. We have criteria in place. We believe those criteria are inclusive, so we're not trying to put one part of the population above another in terms of that. There are some graduate schemes that are more vocational, and they may have higher proportions of people from different ethnic backgrounds than a generic one. What we try to do is recruit on merit, to make it available to all. We use the networks to try and promote it. We talk to that workers network about where we might advocate, but bearing in mind we're coming from a graduate cohort that lives within Nottinghamshire, there are some limitations. So we wouldn't accept graduates from London, for example. That's not part of the criteria of the programme.
Thank you. I think it's Jade. Is that at the back? I missed your hand initially, Jade. So do you want to say a few words before I bring the councillors in? Thank you, Jade.
That's no problem. So one of the things that I just kind of wanted to say was, I feel like there was just like an exclusiveness from the offset. So literally from recruitment, like anything, if you had any questions apart of being in the graduate scheme, like any reasonable adjustments that anyone's needed, from the beginning it's been like done for people. And like we say, we've only been in our placements for like a month, and anything that's ever been an issue, someone's been there to support us. And I think that's just so invaluable to, like say, just come into an organisation, which is a huge organisation. There's a lot of things to get your head around, and it can be quite intimidating. But just to have that constant support, and especially as well, another great thing that I think was really good, that especially in this cohort, that they've actively encouraged people who'd already in the council to come into this position. There's 2 people on this cohort who have already been in previous positions, so it's not just external straight from university, and I think that's really nice as well.
Oh, thank you, Abby. That's very good to hear. Can I thank you. Can I actually thank Sid as well? That's our previous cohort, did an awful lot of work on the blog, and to put us in a position where we are to go live tomorrow afternoon, etc. Yeah, that's really, really greatly appreciated. Errol, just briefly before I bring another councillor in, you take a slight extension further. We also do a lot of work with our commitment is to apprenticeships as well. And in December there's a report coming to this committee on apprenticeships. Slightly delayed because we wanted to bring to you a robust report rather than one which is really incomplete. So that's why it's been slightly delayed. But our commitment is complete, both graduates and apprenticeships. Right, let me bring the councillors in who had raised their hands. So, certainly, of course you can, Aaron.
I know I might have been mistaken from previous sort of information about this or not, so forgive me if I'm wrong. It's about how we get our cohorts. I know you said, Jill, it's only Nottinghamshire we can get. Is there any way, any leverage, any flexibility where we can widen the net a bit more in terms of where we will get people from to come into work for us?
So it's either Nottinghamshire residents or people who have been to a Nottinghamshire university, and that includes a wide range, you know, bordering. So we draw some from Derbyshire, Doncaster, etc., etc. So, so we don't want to do that. We want to focus on Nottinghamshire people. It's a scheme for Nottinghamshire people or Nottinghamshire graduates. So that's what we've chosen to do. So, but I think your point about being, and we have, it's not quite correct to say that the cohorts have never had members of different ethnic backgrounds in, because they have, and have quite significant proportions. Of course, when you're only talking about 6, 2 would be a third. So I think there's more work we can do there. But I wouldn't advise us to dilute our Nottinghamshire-ness of our scheme, because that's what we've set out to do.
And look at the quality of the candidates.
Yeah, but I'm sure you understand where I'm coming from in terms of I'm trying to attract certain groups. I want to make it a bit richer in terms of ethnicity within it, and probably Nottinghamshire, we haven't got that. So, you know, we said maybe we need to look and look at it in a different way. That's all I'm thinking.
You're getting nods from across there, Errol, to that.
It does incorporate the city, which clearly has a different ethnic makeup than the county.
Yeah. Callum, sorry, you've been very patient, Callum. I'd apologise.
Yeah, no problem. So as someone who, I mean, you might be able to tell, recently went through the graduate process after university, I'm quite interested to listen to the graduates. Perhaps if you would like to explain how you first heard of the programme and how you felt when you first put your application and how the process was to get to the role you've received now, really.
Good question.
Like to.
Please, thank you. Volunteer.
Yeah, I don't mind. I was working in the voluntary sector before this, so I graduated like a year ago, and I was working with Derbyshire County Council on a commission project, and I really liked the strategic side of it and the commissioning work and how it all worked, but there's no opportunity there. And to be honest, I was just scrolling through Facebook and that's where it came up, and I think that's where maybe a few of us saw it on Facebook, and it was exactly what I wanted. The application, yes, the written part was quite long, but it's trying to get that information to see out of people, to know what experience they may have had, what examples they can give, to be able to slot into any situation, any environment, and have the skills to be able to work in a place like this. Apart from that, everything was smooth. We got regular email updates, telephone calls, lots of support whenever we needed it. And if you were unsure about something, you could always just ask. So considering, compared to some of the other job interviews I've done previously, I think it was actually really good and yeah, quite easy. Thank you.
Oh, thank you ever so much, Christy. Thank you. Is that right?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, well, I'm interested that you heard about from Facebook, because I know quite a lot of these graduate schemes also come from word of mouth from, you know, fellow students, and you also, you know, on those websites that you have to scroll through. So listening from Facebook is quite interesting because one of the things I'm interested in, because I didn't actually really hear about Nottinghamshire graduate programme for myself. So, and I'm from Lincoln as well. So I was just wondering what involvement the council had. So I'm wondering if, for example, if the council had any dealings with the specific schools in Nottingham, or if it was just the university as a whole. Because I know some schools within the university can have quite different relationships with outside organisations than the university themselves. So I'm very interested to hear if that comes across to the council as well, if they feel that they could get more out of the schools or whether they just want to stick with the university itself.
Does anyone have a view on that for the graduates? Preferably if someone hasn't spoken yet and would like to respond. Please, thank you.
Hello, I think I'm the only person that hasn't spoken yet, so I'll go for this one. Yeah, I also found out about the scheme via Facebook. So I think social media seems to be quite a popular way. I think, you know, the age demographic of graduates probably works quite well with that. But I'm also from Nottingham originally, so I went to a school in Roxtowe, and I went to the University of Nottingham as well. And I did hear about the scheme via a few students, I believe, because students talk about what they're going to do after university a lot. But yeah, I agree that maybe trickling it down to schools could even like influence where students might choose to go to university. Because as far as I'm aware, I don't believe many students from Nottingham or Nottinghamshire do attend Nottingham University or Nottingham Trent. So that could be a positive influence there. Yeah.
I had March to my left nodding ferociously while you were speaking there, so something we can take away. Thank you. Thank you, Karen, for your questions. Jono.
Chairman, thank you very much. All my questions have just been stolen. So the one thing
That's all right. We move on then. No, I'm only kidding.
The one thing I would ask is if you could say, and the day is this is being streamed, I believe.
Yeah.
If there's one thing you could say to maybe future people who could come and do what you are now doing, what would you say to them?
Well, thanks, Jono. Not everyone's spoken, is that right? There we are. Just owned up to it. Seriously, thank you.
I think the thing that I would advise people to do is to just go for it. So I actually moved internally. So I joined the council last September within the family service. And the family service is quite internal. So it was a really big decision for me to apply for something that would span across all the different departments. So I think the advice would just be, to just go for it and just give something a try.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
There's one of the graduates, and I can't remember who it is, who applied once, didn't get in, and then applied again. Is it you, Jade? Would you just mind telling members a little bit about that story?
So for me, I think that kind of just solidified that actually it is about resilience, and it's such a competitive scheme to get onto. So at first, and again, what we've spoke about that we want everyone to have a good experience when they do apply. Actually, because I had like such a good experience with that, I thought, you know what, why not reapply? Because at the time when I did the application last year, I was doing my dissertation, I still had like a lot of assignments due and that kind of thing. So to be honest, maybe my application wasn't quite like, as good as it could have been. So then within the year, I thought, right, okay, I've got now a year. I knew that I wanted to go for it again. So I got myself a placement, and then I also transferred internally. So then I got a job with Notts County Council, also similar to Abby, worked in the children's services. And that experience, when I was in that position for 1 month, I realised that I was recruited onto this scheme. So then I was in that position for 5 months. And actually, that's another thing that I think is really good, that this year I feel a lot of people have worked in previous services, and that's, I think, is also an invaluable skill, because you're coming into potentially an environment which is of management, but you've been on the ground working in some of these roles. And I do feel like sometimes there's kind of like a bit of resistance, that some people feel as though people who make the political decisions or just management decisions don't sometimes aren't on the ground running. So I think that's really good. So for me, if I didn't have such a good experience last time, I wouldn't probably have reapplied. And then I did get onto the scheme this year. So it does show that A, the competitiveness, and B, the support and the opportunity that nobody looked at me different thinking, oh, she applied last year. And I was just given the opportunity this year. So.
That's really helpful. No, I didn't know that. So thank you for telling me. That's very helpful. Thank you. Right. Jonathan.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, first of all, about the report before I speak to our graduate colleagues, is that it's a great report, and speaking to Jill and to Marge on many occasions, I think what's absolutely clear, the commitment we've made is that we want to bring as many people from graduates and apprenticeships and other training schemes as possible, because there are opportunities here. And actually, with graduate schemes, coming straight out of university, I was on a graduate scheme 13 odd years ago now. God, I starting to feel old. But especially when Callum was next to me saying last year, but there we go. From no back then, I remember joining it back then, and there was a lot of expectation on you. Thought you had to get to a certain level at a certain time because you had this extra training. And I think the point I want to make is, though we've made in jest about you're going to be chief executive one day, so start to go by the Ferraris now that Auntie's got on the driveway. But there isn't that expectation that everyone here is going to be going to the very top level if you don't want to be. Obviously, the thing with the council will be the opportunity's there to go as far as you want, but at the same time, don't feel that expectation on your shoulders. Take the time to learn, go across the departments, because believe me, as someone who's been a senior manager for many years, sometimes it's not all, the next rung of the ladder isn't what it seems anyway. I can assure you of that one. And sometimes you might find the level that you actually really want, happy to do. So they don't feel like you've invested money in, you've got to get to a certain level, or we're going to ask for a refund. But Richard might, he's chair of finance, so if he comes to your door, just ignore him, stay away. But on that one, so I think for the internal graduate, again, I was on the graduate scheme I went on the years. I was an internal graduate, and it wasn't designed for internal people. I was asked to go on a training course to learn something that I was actually teaching people a few months before. So I went, oh, this is, a complete waste of time to speak to that bit. So, for your experience, do you feel like the scheme is set up for you as well as the people who are also external, or do you think we could do something a bit different for yourselves just to bypass that? And that's a complete honest. Don't worry, Adrian's not going to give you some extra work to do tomorrow, I promise. Just to get that feedback for ourselves to know whether we want to tailor. We don't want to put off anyone who is internal to join as well, thinking, oh, I'm going to have to learn how to, do what we're doing. Yep.
I've almost joined like a completely different organisation because of the experience, A, of my recruitment, and B, just like the training and qualification, the progression and the support. So like, I would say the only difference, and I mean, it may be different for yourself, but because I was only in my position maybe like 5 months, the only thing that was really different was that I had already done the training, the induction to Notts County Council. Everything else has been completely new. And I think maybe having a bit of experience in some of the services, so understanding some of the jargon, but we've come into completely different departments, that it's not all been the same knowledge and transferable. So I think it's just kind of having a bit more of a bearing of the council. But for me, I kind of feel like just a new person.
Okay. No, that's brilliant. And do you feel there's any, when speaking to previous colleagues of yours, do you feel there's any barriers to people think, oh, I don't want to go on graduate scheme, it has to be for external people, or I have to have a certain knowledge? Just a bit of feedback, just so we know something we don't want to put off anyone of our existing workforce who wants to join in the future.
So I don't really feel like maybe so much for the graduate scheme, but interestingly, I was working in the social work department, and how you've got the Step Up to Social Work scheme, and you've also got the apprenticeship. And I was actually speaking to a colleague, and she did the same position that I previously did. So she was a social work support officer that looked after children's team, and she's quite interested in going onto the social work apprentice scheme, so encourage getting people who already work in social care to become qualified social workers. And the barrier that she's faced is that she's on a temporary contract, and that is a bit of a barrier for her now to progress. And I thought that was kind of a bit of a shame, really, because she's actually worked in social care in a different setting, so in schools, and then she's come on a temporary position to this job. And there is such an emphasis on recruiting social workers at the moment. It seems that if that's the only thing, like maybe there's some sort of negotiation we could do, because to me, that's essentially missing a bit of talent on someone who, clearly wants to work for the council, and that's the thing that's stopping them.
And that's great to hear that feedback. Obviously, I'm sure Joe and Marge will take that away to look at, absolutely, to look at the shores. Because as I say, we don't put anyone off. So I suppose the question would also be to, if you do hear any of those situations again, please ask them to raise that. If they don't feel learn manager, I'm sure they always know to go to Marge or either to myself or the chairman. We'll even it's anonymous to look into, because like you say, we don't, sometimes you think they won't be intentional, I'm sure. It's just one of those sometimes process which just falls through cracks. So to get that feedback is fantastic. So thank you for that. That's exactly
what I said to her. I said, like, it is something worth maybe speaking with HR, because that seems like the only thing really that would stop you. So I think because I don't know if there was like a bit of a move of the council doing like temporary people being on temporary contracts to see how the position went. And I guess sometimes it's to do with funding. Like obviously with our previous position, like extra social work support officers recruited to help with the pandemic. So I suppose it is to do with budgets. Now I do understand that and I do appreciate that. But simultaneously with that, if there is a bit of a push on that we are wanting to upskill people and we are wanting to, recruit social workers, and maybe there's something we could work on in that way.
I'll say, Chairman.
Yeah, you're getting nods from my left-hand side here. Yeah. So yeah, please, that's really good. Christy, I know you're desperate to add something to this. Please do.
I was just going to say, like, to make sure.
Sorry, one mic off, mic on.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, like kind of make sure it is obvious it's accessible to everyone. So I did a sports science degree, and so the whole time when I was exactly like you laughed, which is fine because I
did
get
sports
it.
journalism, which everyone just thought
It's
was
the
cricket
flake-
all day,
it's the
which I
flake-
did, to be fair. So don't worry from me, I know.
Let's be honest, it's the flaky degree that people do when they're not really sure what they want to do unless they desperately know they want to be like a sports scientist and go do a doctorate degree. And so the whole time I was like, well, I've only done sports science. Like these people do English, sociology, all the smart subjects that I've not done. But what I didn't realize is all the external access like volunteering, part-time jobs during university, that all make a massive difference. So yes, I carried on with my degree, but I got the extra bits on the side to then help steer me in the direction that I needed to go, since it's not the most applicable thing. And, you know, there's no one running 100 meters and I can't tell you how well they've done. But yeah, it's just making people aware from university that, okay, that there's other opportunities. If you want to do this, look at volunteering here, look at getting this sort of part-time job. And I just thought it's quite useful to know.
I think that's great. Like I said sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, I just watched journalism. And after about 6 months, I'll be honest, I realised not particularly for me, because I just thought I got to watch football all day and apparently I couldn't. But didn't realise that in the brochure. But I thought, you know what, get the degree, because you got the degree then. I got onto a graduate scheme for I worked from before, and I went from there. So I think that's a great point you raise. And you know, I think we do need to look at, we'll look at how we communicate that out there about the scheme. But you're quite right, it's not just about the degree, it's also the life experience and also the work ethic, because actually going through a degree and never say in the future that there will be an opportunity to use your degree in that discipline as well. I'm sure there's something, you know, Marge volunteered to do, Marge, you just heard it there. Marge got 100 meters, so you can tell her how well she's doing after she's, by the time she does exercise, she breaks her toes. Yeah, there you go, you see. So
what he didn't tell you is in December, he had to go and write a football report, Stoke reserves against Port Vale reserves. That's when he decided perhaps it wasn't for him after all.
Yeah, minus free watching that, I can assure you, absolutely. Not like nowadays we could cheat and just watch it online from home. That's when you had to go there. That was fun.
Thank you very much. Jill, sorry, do you want to finish off the report? Thank you.
Councillor Bailey, you raised a point about the relationship with schools rather than just, I think it was Councillor Jackson at last committee raised the fact about work experience and how we could maintain a relationship with young people who may have contact with the county council, partner organisations. I think that's something that we've got to develop further. We're working on a work experience programme at the moment. That too will be included in the youth employment strategy as setting a context around it. So we'll be talking to you again about it more in future, but I think it's a very valid point to raise. It's not just about the relationship with the universities, it's all the access points where young people might come to us, to be it to a graduate scheme or any of our other traineeships.
Thank you. So what you've told us this afternoon is invaluable, it really has, and a contribution from members as well. All that's will be taken away and will be developed. So great, thank you. Does anyone else want to ask any questions on either the graduates or the report itself? No? Okay, we'll move to the vote. There you go, Sarah. I'm behaving this time. If you're happy, everyone's happy report. If so, please can you indicate? Thank you. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. In that case, item 6, employee recognition. Can I introduce the report and formally move recommendations, please, on page 24?
Have a second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jill, please.
Thank you, Chair. Relatively brief report, seeking approval for a change of approach. So elected members have already recognised the contribution of its workforce throughout the COVID pandemic, both in the previous administration through the round of applause given at the final full council of that administration, and more recently at September's full council, where members approved 1 day's recognition leave for all the council's workforce. All of these very significant, very important to the workforce, but we want to develop an approach. So we recognise the importance of employees being engaged and having their contribution recognised, and that can come in a variety of different ways. What we have found is that there are different levers for different people, and whilst money is clearly a motivator for many people, the council isn't in a position to make financial awards on individuals. So what we want to do is build on existing practice in both adults and place departments where they've already got recognition schemes operating effectively. Less formal thank you schemes work in both children's and chief executives. And what we want to do is develop a more consistent approach to recognising those colleagues who go above and beyond. We also want to include in that a revision of the Council's Long Service Award Scheme. Currently, if you've been employed for 25 years with this authority, you have the privilege of purchasing your own gift and then recovering the money on a receipt. What becomes self-evident over the course of the pandemic, that's not a great way to recognise individuals, that they have to do something for themselves. But also, we've got people who've got service well in excess of 25 years, and it's almost like you reach 25 years and then you're done. There's no formal recognition of it. But also the way people build and develop their careers, they may not be in a position to stay with the county council for 25 years. So do we want to look at recognising 10 years service, 20 years service, 30, 40, 45 plus in some cases? And that at the moment is very much left to individual managers to arrange. So we want to build on work that's been undertaken through the Reward and Recognition work stream, which is part of the Workforce Resilience and Recovery Group, which is chaired by Marge, to engage with the workforce, to understand what it is that they would like to see as part of ongoing recognition schemes. We'd like to introduce an annual recognition award ceremony, and recent feedback has been that the Inspire Annual Award was a very positive and well-received event. So we would talk to colleagues at Inspire to find out how that operated. We'd also like to do something immediately, and in the nature of formerly we used to have chairman's tea parties, and colleagues were invited to those tea parties, and members had the opportunity to talk and engage with the colleagues invited. And that was welcome, because it was, for some colleagues, they never came to County Hall, they never had the opportunity to interact with members. So we'd also like to explore, with the Chair's permission, to do that. And also we want to have a discussion with the organisation. What does recognition mean? Is it the same at different levels of the organisation? We've got to be careful about financial costs, because clearly we're not in a position to be spending a lot of money, but it doesn't need to be a lot of money. What we've found is the really effective thing is the immediate thank you. Thank you, you've done a really good job. Me saying to Adrian, thank you for all the work you've done on your graduate development scheme. To Lindsay, thank you for the work. Those things matter to people, because what motivates me might be £50, what motivates John might be £5,000. You know, I'm not giving him ideas.
Getting closer.
How much money motivates somebody? It's very difficult to judge. So it's asking people what it is they'd like to see as part of those schemes. So that's a very quick run through of what we're looking to do. It's permission and approval to explore in a bit more depth what recognition might look like. Some clear examples of the Long Service Awards, which are relatively easy and quick to deal with. And I'll leave it there and invite questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jill. Errol?
Thank you very much, Chair. Again, I have to take this opportunity to sort of welcome this report. It's a good report, and it's also it's important that we recognise the loyalty that our staff has, and the commitment as well that they have put in over the past 18 months or more. During the pandemic, it's been an absolute tremendous piece of commitment that they've displayed. There might be an opportunity here, I think, for me to sort of thank one of our staff members who unfortunately lost their life recently, and to thank her for the work that she's actually contributed to this council. I know she's worked with Jill and Marge within the Black Workers Group to do tremendous pieces of work here. And Veronica Price's job has been absolutely fantastic, and I want to thank her for everything that she's done. We miss her very much, and our work hopefully will continue in this council. One of the things you talk about money just now, Jill, and I just want to know, could you update the committee on where we are currently with regards to pay increase for our employees? I think the last time I heard being mentioned, it was something like 1.75% that was earmarked to be paid. Am I correct? I'm not sure. Is it still the case, or is it on pause, or something's happening for? I don't know.
Carol, thank you for your very kind words and your thoughts of the member of staff who we've lost very sadly. Thank you, Jill.
Members may or may not be aware that this council is still part of national pay bargaining arrangements, so we don't do individual pay negotiations locally. The current situation is that the national employers offered 1.75%. That offer has been rejected by the recognised trade unions and is subject to further ballot.
Thank you, Harold. Jim.
Again, welcome the report, and just a couple of questions rather than comments rather than anything too serious. But item bullet point 4, it does admit that it could be divisive, actually recognising one person of another. But because of the actual COVID crisis, etc., it's already been brought in. I'm just wondering if there should be something in there to recognise teams in this particular, because it's not just individuals, and no individual could do anything without whoever's behind them, whoever's in front of them, etc. So just a wording on that more than anything else. I think there's some recognitions that some people cannot do something without the backing of their team going above and beyond as well. And just on bullet point 5, literally a question, because I'm not on the other committee. We're going to follow the Inspire approach, which is fine, except I haven't got a clue what the Inspire approach is. So someplace I would like to just have that put in. And item 10, it's just a word of caution. And the very last, literally bullet point in item 10, reward employees with more responsibility. From certain points of view, that could actually be read as actually putting more stress, more responsibility. I think that perhaps could be worded slightly different. I'm sure that's not the intent. But yeah, everything, all the bullet points I agree with, but that one, I think it could be written to something better, because from a trade union point, I read that as stress, extra responsibilities. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Jim. Jill?
Thank you, Councillor Creamer. It would be the Inspire approaches. They have an annual award ceremony and they have different categories, and we would talk to them to find out what their categories are, to see if they can cross over into what the county council might have. So they might have Learner of the Year award. Certainly your point about team awards is well made. I would expect there to be a team award as well as individual awards. In respect of your final point about reward employees with more responsibility, I take your point about that might mean more stress, but you might be the colleague sat going, I wish I had the chance to do, I wish they'd let me do. And actually what we're going to say is, if that works for you, you might get that. But yes, we're not looking to overload. There are such people, believe me. Some people respond really well to be given additional tasks and responsibilities, but obviously we would only do that with the relevant support, training and capacity being in place.
Thank you.
Just to add to the Inspire approach, so there were team awards, people were nominated by their team, they were nominated by their manager, there were set categories, and they just did it really, really well. And it was a clear celebration of all their employees, and they rewarded all sorts of different things. Because I think the other thing is, somebody made the point earlier on about, I think it might have been Councillor Wheeler, about not everybody wants to be the high flyer. Some people maybe who aren't, but contribute just as much, and their contribution deserves to be recognised and valued as well. So making sure you do that. And maybe it is the person, you know, the NASA example, maybe it is the person who's making the tea.
So thank you for that, all the explanations. But just a point, as well, this is actually a public document and people will read the Inspire approach and be, what's the Inspire approach?
Yeah.
So perhaps someplace there ought to be a link to the website or link someplace so the public could actually see it as well as a public document.
Good point, mate. Thank you. Richard and then Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I'm really pleased you're looking at changing the way the 25 years loyalty, because it just seems really impersonal and clunky. And I think, you know, okay, £100 is £100, but I think to a lot of people it's the thank you and it's the recognition that they've been here this long that means a lot more. And maybe the certificate, you know, it means a lot more than something they may buy and you know, forget about in a year or two's time. I like the thought of a 20-year service because I clock that up in a few months' time. So I look forward to that. I'll think about what to spend my £100 on. Do we keep track of people? Because obviously there will be people who have been in and out as things have changed. So if I think of someone who started in highways 25 years ago, they worked for the county council. We went to manage and operate partnerships. They will have 2P'd over to districts. They'll have 2P'd back to the county council, and they'll now have been 2P'd into VIA. Can you even track that? And do we recognise, because they're equally worthy of recognition at 25 years as someone that's been here permanently. And I read the bit, and it's to do with COVID, I think, about a virtual ceremony with the chairman. I just wonder if there's an opportunity to bring that into full council. We hand out awards at the beginning of every full council, and I think this is the way it's done at the moment. Is an officers recognising officers, which is great, but I think something that actually says, look, elected members value people's long service and other types of rewards and awards rather. I don't know how many this is, you know, if it's going to be 50 people individually at the beginning of every council meeting, we're going to have to extend the day. If it's something that we could bring people in, you know, twice a year or something to read out the names and they're all here, just other ways to look at it for Marge, really.
Or better still, Richard, we don't have any council business, we just do that instead. Yeah, Richard, you've stolen my thunder slightly. I agree. We need to move away where we can, as soon as we can, from the virtual world to the real world. We're still stuck in the virtual world, unfortunately. But I'd like to think before long we will not be, and we sooner return to the real world and celebrate people's successes here, the better. Jonathan, thank you, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, Richard obviously stole my notes because they're absolutely on the same wavelength completely. And I think also, going back to the point that Jill made as well earlier, that people respond in different ways. And also it's up to our managers to actually know that as well, their teams. Because like I say, you're completely right. Some people, it's a thank you. Some people need constant praise and reassurance, just how they work. Some people don't, and you have to know, you say thank you for every little thing someone might do, then it loses its impact. So I think it's absolutely important that we work with our managers and make sure that they are feeding back to us as well, perhaps what their teams would like or the individual ones on that one. But I do also, I think the idea of the team award, I think, is really good as well. Because I can understand if it's one or two people in a team perhaps get something, the rest don't think, hang on a minute, we all contribute towards that. That's a great idea as well. But I think also with the you know, people talk about money and, you know, I mean, someone who's been involved in schemes for many, many years, I mean, like I say, it really is that thank you, or even if it's a certificate or it's, you know, being recognised in some other way, that really does go down really well. And we have to be realistic as well, as Chairman of Finance will say, you know, there isn't a budget there to pay out money all the time. But so we have to look at what we can do to get to as many people as possible with the financial restrictions we have as well. We've got to be realistic about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it. Thank you. Any further questions? Sorry, Jill, my apologies. I do apologise. Sorry, Jill.
Just to pick up on Councillor Jackson's point, some years ago we did change the criteria because previously it was Nottinghamshire County Council service only. So if you'd worked for another local authority, come here, you didn't get your 25 years until you'd done your 25 years with this council. So that's already been altered. The issue about GP transferring to another employer, clearly the people who transferred with their service. We can talk to our arm's length bodies about what they do in terms of that, but clearly as they're the employer, it's a matter for them how they recognise the long service in those circumstances.
Okay, thank you. In which case, now if everyone's had their say, move to the vote. Please raise your hand if you're happy to support the recommendations. Thank you. Sarah, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to agenda item 7. I'll introduce the board, please, which is in front of you, and formally move the recommendations on page 34.
And have a second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jill, to you again.
Thank you. Last one from me today. This report is seeking committee approval to sign the Work to Stop Domestic Abuse Charter, which is a document that's been brought to our attention and is sponsored by the GMB Union. It's timely that we've been asked to do this, coming immediately after October, which was the month to raise awareness of domestic violence, and also in the year that the Domestic Abuse Act has been enacted in Parliament, signed royal assent in April of this year. We do much of what is required within the Charter already. We have a policy to support employees. We have management guidance of how to support employees who may be experiencing domestic abuse or violence at the moment. But this seemed one of those areas where publishing a demonstrable commitment to raise awareness, particularly as we know that the figures relating to domestic violence have increased over the course of the pandemic. It just seemed a timely intervention for this committee as another mechanism of support for our workforce where they may be experiencing some of the worst situations within their family and where work can seem like a refuge, because one of the issues about home working we have found is that some colleagues have wanted to come back into offices because of the experiences they have at home. So I'm not going to go into detail. I'm happy to answer any questions relating to the signing of the Charter. I don't think it places additional burdens on us. I think it's timely that we review training and management guidance anyway, and I have no problem about using any trade union colleague or indeed our existing provision of employee support to signpost anyone who needs assistance, be that internal or external, and to develop our provision of support in this area.
Lots of heads nodding behind your shoulder, so it's really good to see. Thank you. Jono?
Chairman, thank you very much. When I worked for this authority for the Family Intervention Project, we did a lot on this, and I welcome the changes won by national government in the aspects of what is accepted as domestic violence, with the financial and the verbal abuse as well, is something that we saw a lot, and it's not acceptable in any form. And I do welcome this report, and that's it really. And I thank you, the officers, for all the work that they've put on this.
Thank you, John. As you can see from item 7, our commitment and what we as a council will be doing. Thank you. Sorry, Jim, I do apologise.
No,
you are on my list.
Waiting for permission. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. The report is very, very welcome. It is true that during COVID, violence against women in particular has actually increased, and it's likely as we come out of it, there's going to be what has been hidden come forward as well. And with the World Cup coming up, that tends to actually increase violence if the England team's not doing very well. It's horrible to say, but true. Just one literal question, and say I've got no problems with it per se at all. But on the yellow pages on the 4.1, talk to your team HR for advice. I'm just wondering on that one, being as it's already been agreed, but on certain instances, and I could place one, but people may or may not want to contact their HR for the simple reason they're perhaps too close to them. And it is something that people don't like to report. That's one of the problems. It's difficult to actually find it. There's lots of measures in here which I agree with on how to spot it, so that's good. But would it be some places that in actually putting this scheme, putting it forward to people, they can say, well, if you don't feel safe or you don't feel, you can talk to us, talk to another HR, another HR related or non-related team. the HR team is going to pick it up eventually because they're going to have to deal with any time off, any issues, any arrangements. But in the first case, I'm just wondering if it might be, instead of it literally speak to your own, whether there's a possibility at least of speaking to somebody else on HR that's not directly with you that can pass it on. So that's the only thing. It's just reporting because it's so hard to report when people actually want to report it. It's difficult.
Would you like to respond to that, Jill, before we move on to Callum? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Creamer. That is one of the things we need to review in that document because there's no such thing as your HR or out. You know, we're part of one team. We have dedicated business partners supporting different departments, but there's always the facility to talk to somebody. We've got an HR duty desk, which is anonymous. Anyone can ring it, and you know, you can speak to somebody who is will be supportive and will have the knowledge, because part of the training will be to further develop that with the HR duty desk. And we've also got direct referral to a counselling service. Excuse me. We've got workplace buddies, we've got mental health first aiders, we've got wellbeing champions. So there is a raft of opportunity for people to go to somebody unconnected, either in their direct line management or somebody in HR who they may feel is too official to tell.
Thank you. Callum.
Thank you, Chairman. I also very much welcome this report. I'm very glad that domestic abuse is actually rising on the agenda, and of course there's always more that can be done. I was just reading the section 5 in the appendix about the role of the manager, and I was just wondering, in terms of the county council at the very moment, is any training offered to managers to recognise the signs of domestic abuse? It's not mentioned in the appendix, but I'd like to think that some training is offered to managers to make them aware of the signs. Thank you.
The majority of training around domestic violence is provided for practitioners who are supporting people in communities. What we have done is written management guidance. We've developed that with public health colleagues to ensure that it is transferable to the situation in the workplace. So one of the things that Charter requires us to do is to consider whether we need to extend our training provision, and that's some of the work that we'll be doing in future.
I think that possibly answers your question, that one, isn't it there?
Yes. I was just wondering if we could go further, for example, in terms of, so for example, we've got the internet. For example, there could be videos on there, or, you know, suggestions such as those. I think it's all very well and good to have the guidelines in writing. Of course, I think reinforcing those with other training tools would go a very long way.
Absolutely agreed here. Again, to my left, and Jill as well. Thank you, Callum, for bringing that to our attention. Okay, we done? Thank you. In that case, we'll move to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. There you go, Sarah. I'm getting better at this. Item 8, elected members' personal safety. I'll introduce a report and formally move the recommendations on page 53.
And second, Mr. Chairman.
Before I bring in John, can I start the meeting, because I know I'd probably forget otherwise, to thank John for an awful lot of work he's done on this at breakneck speed. I was saying to John before the meeting, him and I have probably spoken more times than I speak to my wife at home on this matter. Don't tell her that. I said that, Jonathan. We have, because it had to be done very, very quickly. And talking to our partners, communications team, IT team, rolling it out, getting approval from a whole stack of different people. So thanks, John, for all you've done. Really appreciate it. It's yours now.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. So this report was written very much in the wake of the tragic events of the 15th of October and the death of Sir David Amess. And really it sets out in two areas. One, some of the actions, and just give you an overview of some of the actions we've taken to date in terms of training and looking at what security systems are in place. And then secondly, looking at the People Safe loan working app and the accelerated rollout that's fallen out since that. I am conscious as well that this picks up very much the app part from when I was last here at this committee, and some of the questions that centred around how fast that would be rolled out. So it has equally served to answer that question, move things forwards. So taking the first part and the personal safety review, I mean, in essence, what we wanted to do was act very quickly and look at what the threat was, both facing yourselves, and this was very much paralleled of what was coming out of central government around the threat to MPs. As I've written in the report, we set up a dialogue, an established dialogue, which we already have with the police and counter-terrorism policing, once this has been declared a counter-terrorism incident, and we are having dialogue and will feed back any information that's pertinent to your security as that evolves. It's a tiny reminder, and I haven't put it within this document, but also we do have on the normal training suite, there is the app with the ACT e-learning, which covers those aspects, the counter-terrorism aspects. The second point was look at the training, and earlier this year we did have following the members induction programme, or indeed part of the members induction programme, a session which ran through the People Safe app in the prior to it being rolled out, which was quite a light touch because you didn't actually physically have the app then to actually look at in conjunction with the training. And we reiterated some of the personal safety guidance. And that personal safety guidance was very much based around what the Local Government Association had produced following the death of Joe Cox. And it's a fairly good contemporary document in one place. So we did recirculate the link, and I think that is a good start point with many links that spin off that. Myself and the chair did then also attend the two sessions that I received notice of, and we did circulate those. It was a bit of a gamble because we didn't know fully what the content was, and I think while the content was good for some audiences, it didn't probably meet what we needed within this council, and I think there was only the two of us actually monitored or watched that. And I do have the hard copies of the slides now, and I will make those available for anybody who didn't attend it. But I think the LGA guidance is probably the site to go to should you need further reading on this subject. So really, in terms of security moving forwards, I think very much like we always focus on, it'll be down to monitoring what the current threat situation is and looking at risk assessment of events, risk assessment of how we manage meetings such as this, risk assessment of the building. And obviously coming up, we have the remembrance event where, again, normal security procedures will apply to that. So that's the first part. Secondly, moving on to the lone working app, we decided that we needed to draw a baseline where we were with this in the wake of the events of the 15th, and actually it was apparent that none of the apps had been rolled out to members. So from that baseline, the offer as it stands was to have the app on your own personal phone, to have your app on an NCC issued phone, an other phone which was either issued via a district or another official source, or not at all. And to date, as I speak this afternoon, I believe there are 33 responses to that request. And out of the 33 responses, there are a number of downloads. Now, I did check this morning, there are only 4 live at the moment, for people using it live on the system. So I think I would urge you, if you have had the download, to move through that process of putting in the PIN number and activating it properly. And then secondly, one of my colleagues today, again, I asked her to reiterate the training. There is a link being sent out. I think Daisy is, if she hasn't done so, will be doing tomorrow, for the training, both on Android and Apple formats. So basically the links to People Safe YouTube clips which will take you through the training. Any questions from those arising, please come back to us. And we've also put that on the NCC intranet as well. So there are two methods of gaining that information. So the app rollout, it is moving forwards. I think it's very much dependent on the other 33 returns coming in as well. So we hopefully get the 66 responses. We have had 4 no requests at the moment. And I think once we have got all the no requests, we'll have a conversation and again, just explain the benefits of what the app will bring. So I think I'll leave it at that point and open for any questions.
Thank you, John. As John just said, please do respond. Now, we're not saying, I'm not saying, John's not saying, you must do this. It's your call, your choice, whether you wish to download the app or not. Conversation will be had for those who decline as to why. Is there any more we can do to help you? But please do respond. It's very important. And also download the app. If I can do it, believe you me, anyone can do it. It's that simple. It really is that simple and straightforward. It does work very, very simply and very easily. Jono.
It's quite a strange one, isn't it? We are where we are. We've had 2 Member of Parliaments that have now been murdered. In 3 days' time, it will be 14 years to the day that I was blown up in Afghanistan. And some days I feel safer in a war zone than I do as an elected individual. Since I was elected as a district councillor and a county councillor, I've been assaulted twice. I have been harassed. I had to have the police involved due to 2 people stalking me. And only on Monday, I left this chamber after being here for the children and young people to park in Newark Town Centre, where the cinema is, to be harassed and shouted at and held abused by protesters who were protesting against trees in Newark. Now, I completely fight for their right to protest. I do not fight against their rights to abuse staff workers as they were doing from district council and then to abuse county councillors and district councillors. I do not and will not endorse that. And literally, I was trying to get some food before I went home because I'd been working all day. And I'm sure if you were to speak to elected members from across Nottinghamshire, each individual would have stories like this. We need to do more because, as we were only saying on the first agenda item, we want more people to be involved in local elections, local politics. And it's really sad that I think that as we see people being murdered for the political persuasions, that we're going to find less and less people that want to sit in these chairs. And that must change. And I do welcome the app. I think we need to go further. And I'm more than happy to have that conversation. And I would be more than willing to have a conversation with any councillor who doesn't wish to have the app. Because trust me, when you are lying there dying after a terrorist to try killing you, you will think again, trust me. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Thank you, John. Come back, John, we'll come back a bit later on, okay?
Yep. Sorry, just to apologise that I thought I had sent off the link, but I actually hadn't, and I only actually replied on Monday. So I don't know if that makes it 34 or not. So I do apologise for that. But when it actually comes through to being harassed, I've got to admit I've had very, very few. But there are occasions where I thought it would have been useful to have something. But I've been a councillor a very, very long time, and it's there's always that occasion. And it only takes one occasion. That is the main issue. I'm glad the training's going to be put out on there because I do actually know one councillor who's had his security changed. I don't know mentioned by them, but security changed because he did have something like this rather than the phone. And he got the app, but no training. So I won't actually tell him the training's online now. So thank you.
Yeah, the training will be followed up, as I said, but please do download the app to begin with. And John, I know, is working extremely hard, and he keeps on saying it's not just me, it's the rest of the team as well. So I do accept that unreservedly, but yeah, it is coming your way. Come back in a minute, John. Richard, sorry, Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. And John's answered some of these. It's at least 5 people using it now because I've just signed up before this meeting.
Well done.
And I'm really pleased to hear that we've got some training coming because I was looking at the app and I thought the only way to check it, now, if I know how to work this, is to press the alarm button. I didn't want to do that, obviously, so that would be really useful. There's a few things. I mean, I had a couple of death threats online several years ago. Initially, it wasn't something the police wanted to take seriously. They did after the intervention of the Member of Parliament at the time, and they took it very seriously, and they come out and reassured me that it wasn't a credible threat, and then they went through my house to check that it could be target hardened. So it's reassuring in one way and terrifying in another way. I wonder if there's a specific single point of contact within the police that members can have contact details for, because trying to report it at the kind of front door at the time, I mean, it may well have changed after the events of last month, but at the time, it really wasn't taken seriously, and to be told that this is a harmless person that does this kind of thing, you know, is not the answer, because unfortunately, people who commit these attacks probably started off as the harmless person that posted these things and progressed to something else. So we need to know that. After that, I was advised by the police to take my home address off the council's website, which I did. And I know from looking through the site, some councillors have got County Hall as their address. Some choose, I don't know whether they're given the choice, whether they have to opt out. A lot of councils now just have the council offices as their address by default. So I don't know whether it's worth asking members that again in light of what's happened recently, because I think more might choose to do that. And I'm also pleased to hear that we're going to look at this building, because particularly, I know we've not had this for some time, but when we have protests in the gallery, it is intimidating. And there will be, I know there are members, because I've spoken to people who didn't speak because they're intimidated to do so. So if we're losing, if people feel they're losing the ability to actually do what they're here to do because there's intimidation, I think that's something we need to look at, and whether that means that screen should go to the top or something, I don't know, but I'm sure people can look at it. And equally, to just look at whether we go back to using the Rufford Suite, because pre-COVID, meetings like this would often have taken place in the Rufford Suite. Members of the public coming in there sit directly with no barrier or anything behind members of the committee that are sat down the two sides of the room, and I'm not sure how appropriate that is. And again, it could be intimidating for colleagues in that sort of situation. So I just look forward to some of that, and just taking members' suggestions on board when you look at the building, I think would be really useful.
Thank you. There's a lot there, John, for yourself and Marge, I think, so ferociously writing down what you were speaking. John, do you want to come back?
Yes, if I may. For Councillor Jackson, thank you for some of those points. On the training, I think in reality it's going to be a layered approach, whereas you download the app, if you follow the link and the YouTube clip and obviously gain what information from that you can, and then indeed come back to ourselves in health and safety if there are any further questions. What we're also going to offer when it's full council, very much like IT, is a stand outside. So in real terms, you can come forward with the app and we can actually show you some of the facets of how it works. And some of the how you mark your location and how you can check in and check out. And indeed, we are only just learning ourselves in health and safety. We've downloaded the app in a similar time frame, so we're gaining the experience as well. So hopefully share some of that experience. As for the police contacts, there are police contacts, and we can share those depending whether it's around physical building infrastructure or personal safety. That's something that we are able to do. Okay, thank you.
So that bit about the home addresses. So obviously, I don't feel it's for me to determine whether you should have your home address or not on. But I think you're right about. But I'm happy to remind to go to members and say, in the light of what's happened, do you still want to? And I think it's a individual member's decision, because some are really clear they do, and some are really clear they don't. And if you listen to some of the rhetoric from MPs following the death of Sir David Amess, there was, on the day, there were a lot of MPs saying it's really important that we're in our communities, that people know who we are, and we're able to continue and be accessible in our communities. So I do think that, I feel I could make that decision for members. I don't think that's right, but I'm more than happy to. And some members have come forward, as you say, since this, to say I want my home address removing, so more than happy to do that. And I think your other point is very well made about asking members and listening to members' suggestions, because John and the team are going to do what they think from their perspective, but it's important that we reflect the people who are impacted by this and what would help you, not what we think will help you or you should have. So more than happy to do the bit about home address. I just don't feel like I'm just unilaterally doing it.
So John, when you're pulling this together, if you want to get out to members and say we welcome your thoughts, your observation, your views, your comments, whatever, you may want to put out, if it's unfortunate you have to do this, but you may want to put out a reminder to members to at least indicate whether it's a yay or a nay, but it's not acceptable not to give a response at all. And then a decision can be made as to what further support we can offer those who have declined. Okay. Is that all right? Oh, sorry, Jonathan. Yeah.
Thanks, Chairman. I mean, John, we just need to, clear up the communication about the app, because under point 10, it says that once a preference is received from a member, the provider will forward links to the app download. And I know I responded straight away when it came out. I didn't get anything from the provider, so I downloaded that myself. Again, I saw it there, but I'll wait. But I actually downloaded it. I think it's just to have a look myself. So I think that's probably why a lot of people haven't yet. So perhaps we just need to work out communications to make sure we're right on that.
Yes, I would totally agree from our experience as well. And we thought that was something that would automatically generate from PeopleSafe, and hence the follow up today. So yeah, take on board your points on that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, well, once more again, John, thank you to all the behind you who are in rolling this out. It's greatly appreciated. So, no further questions, I'm assuming, so we definitely go to the vote. Everyone in favour of the recommendations, please show. Thank you. So finally, to the work programme, which you have in front of you. Any comments, Jim?
Just one. On the security app, would it be worth putting 6 months just to review, see how it's worked, 6 months for it, or whatever you think is best, to be honest?
Totally agree. Yeah. Sorry.
What Councillor Wheeler is suggesting is we pick it up as part of that health and safety update in March.
Yeah, I think John already put in his report, and as well as in the report as well. To come back
Yeah.
I was just going to suggest when the member safety item comes back, and just think about making it an exempt report, or parts of an exempt report, because if we're going to be talking about stats of how many of us have downloaded apps for protection.
Yeah,
it's not something we want to go
absolutely.
shouting
It
about.
needs to be. You need to be. I'll be aware of that. Absolutely. Thank you. So there's no vote required on the work programme. So we've taken it into account all you've said. Don't think there's any work programme. I said, was there a vote required in the work programme? No? No, there isn't one. Before I get told off again. That concludes business for today. And thank you very much for all who've done. A huge thank you also to our graduates. If you wouldn't mind staying on for a few minutes, please. It won't take much more of your time, I promise you. And have a safe journey home. And thank you very much again. Thank you.